Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this training on the commercial sexual exploitation of children, also referred to as CSEC. My name is Kayla Smith, and I'm the CSEC coordinator at the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County. This training is just going to be a brief overview of what CSEC is, as well as some red flags indicators to look out for. So I'm just going to get right into it. So what is the Children's Advocacy Center? Some of you may have been here before working on cases. We're a center aimed at reducing the stress of a child victim as well as their non-offending family members. We do work with the entire family. We follow a CSEC protocol, which initiates a multidisciplinary team or an MDT when a case comes in. As a case comes in, from that point, a forensic interview may happen. Some cases, the kids are not ready yet to talk about what had happened. So we'll wait until they're ready. We don't force them to come in and do the interviews. Depending on if there's an interview or not and what is disclosed during the interview, that determines the steps moving forward. The CSEC coordinator will reach out to the victim and their family and help with services, resources, if they need referrals to therapy, things like that, as well as just being there to answer any questions they may have about how the process works. So what even is CSEC? The commercial sexual exploitation of children. Any child under the age of 18 who engages in, agrees to engage in, or offers to engage in any sexual conduct in exchange for money, clothing, food, shelter, goods, or care. And it's referred to as child sex trafficking by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Typically, there are three forms of sexual exploitation: local exploitation by one or a few individuals, which is what we see most often here in Hampshire County. So this could be a parent, family member, boyfriend or girlfriend exploiting the child. And then there's small regional networks involving multiple adults and children. And unfortunately, we have seen some of these due to how close we are to many highways, such as the Mass Pike, 91, 391, and large national or international sex crimes networks. CSEC is the second largest criminal enterprise after drug trafficking. Simply put, you can sell a child over and over again for years, and with the drug, you can only sell the product once and then it's used and that's it. Some red flags and indicators to look out for. When you see them, they may talk as though they have a script, because essentially they do. Their exploiter will tell them what they should and should not say. Very hostile, nervous, stressed out, or irritated. They're taught not to like you, so it's important to be patient with them and give them some time to see that you're not the enemy and that you're truly there to help them. They may be unaware of the date, time, location, and where they live, especially in cases where they're moving them, from hotel to hotel or even across state lines. And the younger the kids are, they may have no idea if they went to Boston or they went to Hartford. They just know that they went to a big city. They may be frequently absent from school, have new clothes, goods that don't technically match their situation. So any officers that may also go into the schools, if you see the same kid every day and you know that they come from a good home life, if you see that child absent 3-4 times a week when they've never been absent before, or you see a child who you know is a low income family and they have new iPhones, the newest shoes, name brand clothes, those are things to look out for. Frequent medical visits for STIs, abortions. If there's kids who are frequently running away, and particularly if you know that they're running away with older individuals, that's also something to be aware of. Language is really important when we're dealing with these types of victims, because the language is dictating how we see the problem and how we're going to respond to it. Rather than calling them prostitutes or child prostitutes, they are victims at the end of the day. They didn't sign up to do this. They're not willingly doing this. We don't call them pimps, traffickers, or an exploiter. And rather than calling the people who are buying these services a John, they're a purchaser. That's what they're doing. They're purchasing a service which is given to them illegally and it's forced. And when you're talking to the kids, it's really important to make sure you're using the language that they're using. So if you have a child victim and their boyfriend is the one who was trafficking them, if they're referring to them as boyfriend, when you're in the room talking with the child, it's important that you refer to them as boyfriend. Do you live with your boyfriend? Tell me more about your boyfriend. And then once you're away from the child, then that's when you can call them their trafficker or the exploiter, because using the same language as the kids is really going to open that door for them to be able to trust you and build that relationship with you where they can tell you what's going on. So just some pathways into CSEC and who's vulnerable. How a child can be recruited. Parents can simply be selling their children. Even if they sell them to just one person, that is still sex trafficking. Violence, force, they could be kidnapped. That does still happen, although it's not as frequent as someone in the family trafficking them. Seduction, coercion, and peer recruitment, typically when it's their boyfriend or someone at school doing the trafficking. They may say, oh, you should bring some of your friends in, or next weekend, I'm going to bring some of my friends. You should treat them the way you treat me, things like that. And they coerce them and seduce them into thinking that it's something normal and it's something that they want, when in reality, they feel as if they don't have a choice. False advertising for any modeling, acting, dancing type opportunities, such as on Instagram. They may message them and say, oh, you're beautiful. I think you'd be perfect for this shoot I'm doing next weekend. I'll fly you out. I pay for a hotel, things like that. Internet enticement through chat rooms or profile sharing sites. So again, this could be Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, or it could be Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, any app designed where you're able to talk to a stranger. So as a responding officer, you have a pivotal role in talking to this child, talking to their family, and getting a sense of what's going on. You should always try to conduct an interview with the child themselves and find out where they were, who they were with, and see if they will tell you what they were doing. And as I mentioned before, it's really important to try to form a bond with the child. They're going to be afraid of you at first. It's going to happen. So just making sure you're taking time, talking to them, being patient. If you're getting frustrated, don't show them that you're frustrated. It's going to take a long time for them to realize that you're there for them and you're trying to help them, and that it's safe for them to tell you what's going on. And after interviewing the child, you want to interview the parents as well and see if there's any concerns, who they think the child is with, if they know what they were doing, and if they had any reason to believe that the child will run again. Just some fundamentals of CSEC, going back to the language. This is some terminology that you might hear the youth using. Bottom girls, so those are the girls who have been with the trafficker the longest, and they essentially become the new recruiters bringing girls in. Daddy, boyfriend, some names that they might call their exploiter. They'll be referred to as a bitch or a hoe, and that's what they may call themselves and what they may call other girls who were in the trauma with them. Typically, anyone who purchased their services, they'll call a trick or a date. They may say, oh, he brought me to a trick downtown and then we drove back uptown to go on another date. And they'll refer to the whole group as a family or a stable. So if it's their boyfriend and maybe 4 or 5 other girls, they're calling themselves a family. And it typically happens on a track or a stroll when it's happening outside. Now with technology, it's happening more and more inside. It's all set up online, and they'll go to a certain house or a certain hotel room and just tell the purchaser, come to the Holiday Inn room 2. And that's how it's all happening. It's not always out on the streets on certain highways, things like that anymore. It still does happen like that, but we're seeing much more often cases happening in hotels or in houses. And the language that they use, they may say that they were broke into it by her boyfriend and 4 other people raping her, and that's how they became part of it. And a lot of the rest of these terms are if it is out on the street, if a purchaser doesn't pay them, they have to pay out of pocket to their exploiter, which essentially means they just have to keep going until they make that money up. Choosing up if they make eye contact with another exploiter on the street. Now these 2 exploiters are going back and forth over who essentially owns that victim, and serving papers if the victim was served and they're in jail or they are going to court. There's the term so that all the other exploiters know, oh, someone got served papers, so now we have to be careful, we need to move somewhere else. So these are the common stages of commercial exploitation. They start by luring the victim in. They'll assess and test the waters with the victim and see how much information they can get, make them feel special. They'll ask if everything's good at home, if they have a good relationship with their family, and they'll try to see what vulnerabilities the child has. If they post on their social media, I have no friends, I hate my family, I'd be better off by myself, or even taking my life, that's where they're going to swoop in and say, oh, I feel the same way, I hate my parents, we should just run off. Things like that. They're going to groom the victim, the honeymoon stage, make them feel like they're in love, this is the best thing that's ever happened to them. They can make all their dreams come true. You're not happy here, let's fly away and we can go to California and have a great life out there, just us. They'll promise, I'll give you a family, we'll have a great house, you'll be able to get clothes, you can go shopping, and make it seem as though they can give them the perfect lifestyle. And as a child, they're very vulnerable to these things, they're very naive. So it's easy for them to think that, maybe this is my true love and this is the answer to everything. So that's really how they form that bond with the child. And then comes in the coercion and manipulation. They give mixed messages to the kids. They'll be super romantic at one point, and then 5 minutes later, yelling at them, cussing at them, maybe even physically hurting them. They withdraw, they'll draw back from them, not talk to them, ignore them. And it really messes with the emotions of the child. Of course, they have this bond now, but when someone's taking away everything that they promised you, but then, 20 minutes later, they're telling you they love you again, it's really quick for kids to think, oh, okay, that was just me, I was just overthinking it, it's my fault. And they'll try to get back in the good books. They may do something that they know the exploiter likes, whether it be a sexual act or making them food or going out making money somehow. And by doing these acts, they usually are rewarded with drugs or money or some type of good. It could even be just getting food if the exploiter is typically withholding food from them. And then the exploitation truly starts. They break them down and will threaten their family. I know where your parents and your siblings live. If you don't go out and make me this money, I'm going to go after them. I'm going to send photos of you to people that I have, and just makes the child feel very scared and even more vulnerable, to the point where they'll do whatever the trafficker says. They feel that they owe a debt to them, this financial pressure. They may say, I brought you here, I gave you this great life, and you haven't paid a cent, so it's time for you to pay me back what you owe. There's emotional abuse always, and then there may be physical abuse as well. And they're going to isolate them. They won't let them talk to their family. They won't let them go out and make friends. Any friends or acquaintances that they have, it is because of the exploiter setting that up, and they have full, complete control over everything that that victim is now doing. So that was just a brief overview, very on the surface level. This is all of my contact information. So if you have any questions or comments about anything, or you just want to learn more about it, you can feel free to contact me. And then we also just have some resources on here that we typically always are looking at, seeing new updated stats, seeing what's going on locally as well. So thank you for taking the time to watching this training. I hope you learned something and that it provided insight. And again, I'm always here if you want to chat or just go over any of the information and ask any questions.